You're listening to Intentionally Catholic, a podcast about living our Catholic faith with joy and intention.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening. I'm Dan Hansen, and as always, I'm joined by Father Ron Hutchinson. Now, on today's episode, we're really going to just continue our conversation, the one that we started last week, about what we can do to keep our kids Catholic. It's something that came about, a conversation that came about because of a study that I ran into, a recent one, that reported that only 15% of Catholic kids stay Catholic. Now, those are really scary numbers when you think about it. And since we've really been focusing and talking about evangelizing and sharing our faith with the world, it seemed like it was a good time to hit pause and really just kind of dial in and look at what we can do to first evangelize at home. Now, last week's episode focused on starting with ourselves and working to really deepen our own relationship with Christ. And then from there, we talked about how we as parents need to make church and faith a priority. We've got to live it every single day, not just on Sundays. Finally, we wrap that conversation up by focusing on the importance of being leaders in the home, leading our kids in prayer, leading our kids to confession, leading our kids to the Lord. And that's where we're going to pick it up right now.
Yeah, I think you were talking about being, a good leader, being fearless. It's interesting. I had another one that it kind of fits with that at the same time. It's called practicing authoritative parenting. Okay. I think today, one of the fears I have, and I see it a lot, is that too many parents want to be friends with their kids. And I think, yes, there's a place for that, so to speak, okay, or a time, maybe a certain age when that's possible a little bit more. But what I mean by authoritative parenting is that we recognize there's always two sides of love, okay? There's the soft side and the hard side. There's the soft side that, where we make them know they're loved and we say it, we hug them, all those things, affection. But discipline is the other side of it. God is both, soft and hard love. Okay, he's two sides of the same coin. So parents have to be two sides of the same coin. And so, yeah, there are times when to get something out of our kids, we all only have to just use the soft side. It's easy sometimes. But there are also times when we have to say, or sit them down and say, I'm not kidding about this. I'm not fooling about it. This is serious. As long as you're living in my home, we're going to go to church every Sunday. And I don't want to argue about it. I don't want a discussion. I don't want, you making a scene or trying to get out of it. Just know that that's the rule in the house, There are other rules they know clearly in your home. Trust me, they do. They know what language you will and won't use in the home. They know what's acceptable or unacceptable to their brothers and sisters. All of it. Even things they can say to you or not say to you. But we've got to make that clear also about faith and practicing of faith, because once it seems negotiable and there's not authority behind it, there's no hard side to that. Trust me, they're going to figure out ways to weasel around it then.
I completely agree, but I guess I'm just curious from a practical point of view. I'm curious what you're thinking, like an age. You said as long as you're living under this roof. I mean, I completely get that. And I have run into the issue where anything's gone beyond that, if we've even gotten to that point. I can't, maybe once or twice, maybe. But I know people who have gotten to the point where as long as you're under my roof, well, no, I'm not going. Well, what? Am I going to wrestle you to the car? You said no. I mean, there's a point where there's nothing I can do if they're not going to. And do I throw them out? I mean, man, what big questions happen? It's tough.
I granted, I guess, I didn't know that kids went that far sometimes. Okay.
Oh, they love to go that far sometimes.
Okay. So
not all of them, but there are some situations.
Yeah. It's funny because I was raised in a family where, you just didn't want to make mom or dad that mad. You just didn't. You didn't want to go there.
Right.
So I guess what we've somehow made okay is that you can go there. And I don't know when that started. That started at an earlier age, to be quite honest with you.
I think some of it did with, maybe it's what we did, maybe that. I think kids know that society has frowned on discipline in a lot of regards. They can play it. I think that parents are handcuffed. I mean, it's really tough. If you can't reason with and I'm not advocating that we're just pummeling the children. Of course not. There's other ways,
No.
but there is a level of discipline that's been removed. And I think that's where some of the slippery slope happens, where you do have kids who just flat say, no, I'm not going to do it, especially as they get older.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you I had the answer for that.
Yeah, there's no answer for that.
I think that then if I would say that if there's not a place for, discipline, there's no way you can, discipline for that. Or I think there are ways, if you want
Absolutely.
to know my honest opinion. I think that parents don't realize they have a lot of monetary control. And they don't have to pay for things. Kids do not have to have phones. You just take the phone. I watched a parent one time on a YouTube video, and granted, you get all sorts of responses to it, and some were good and some were bad. But the parent said, "If I told you not to have your boyfriend in your room alone with the door closed," and so the door came off the hinges. It literally came off. He took it off. The father took it off and said, "I told you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, no door." And, it's like sometimes we have to go to those extremes so they know we're not kidding here.
Yeah.
And that may sound really horribly extreme, but I don't think that just says, like, I have a rule. I asked you to follow the rule, live by the rule,
mm-hmm.
And there are consequences if you don't live by the rule. No different than in society, by the way. It's called jail.
Yeah.
And granted, we don't want our home to be a prison, but at the same point in time, if there are no consequences, then yeah, they're going to rule. They're going to rule.
The kids call my home the Rock. And they know they're there.
You know what? There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, it's to some extent, but yeah, I completely agree. And young parents start now with the discipline, and setting the line. I mean, that doesn't even need to be said. We struggled our way through that. I think we did all right. I had plenty of people telling me we were over, that I disciplined too much. I was too particular and I had too many expectations or demands. But, I think I'm not, again, I'm not reached the end of the race, but at this point I've reaped some benefits of that.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you why I believe that, you have done better than you think you have done. So well done, my good and faithful servant. It's because you're always getting compliments, even when you don't hear them, about how your kids behave, how respectful, kind, that they have manners. They know how to be in society. They aren't so self-absorbed that they can't, recognize when you come in the door, you say hello to people and you greet them. And, so
that's cool. That's cool.
I think that you may not realize it, but other people are talking about it. And it does make a difference because, I think that, if we don't have expectations of our children, even if maybe they seem like too much in some people's minds, that's the bar that you're setting then. So if you don't say, when we come into a room, you say hello to people and we don't act like we could care less or we're too shy to say hello, we have to get over it. That's called life. That's how it works. Yes, you may be an introvert, but you still say hello, So, yeah, I think, recognize that maybe at the time those people were saying that because you were not giving credence to their values.
It could be,
but you set your values. And I think that the problem today is we're letting everybody else decide our values as parents. And I think that's where the problem begins right away, because society has a very low bar, low bar.
And if you can lick the problem in the beginning, I think you set yourself up for a better future. Now, we still ran into stuff. one thing that I can speak from experience on, and I feel very comfortable with, is we did have a couple of times where things got pretty tough with one of the kids. And I wasn't sure how to handle it. And, I would lose my cool from time to time, and he would lose his cool, and we'd go head to head. I think it's just getting older kind of a thing. And
Mm-hmm.
man, it was a very short span of time, but I did question a lot, just, am I doing this the right way? What am I doing? And not, I mean, shortly after that flare up and how things started to die down, he spends a lot of time telling me that he really appreciated the time that we worked through all those things. And I wasn't as dumb as he maybe thought I was in the beginning, and he comes around, and they do come around. I think a lot of the times, a lot of it is just do what you can, hang on as tightly as you can to your values and try to instill. And then when you hit this point where you've got the flat no, I'm not going to do that, then it's, praying. You can turn it over to God at
Mm-hmm.
that point. I don't know what else you do. So I love those ideas. Did you have another one?
Well, let me look here. I had written down, I put them all down on a note. I think the other piece is the final thing, and it sort of fit with another one I was mentioning, but connecting your kids to experiences that supplement the faith. So again, we can't believe that faith is going to be just something that happens. We have to make sure that they have opportunities to live and experience and grow in their faith. So yeah, I do think that going to Bible school, summer Bible school, and being an altar server or being in the choir or, whatever their talent is or whatever. But that, again, it's like, that is who we are. We're engaged with this. We're engaged at a level that makes this more than just something we do. It's who we are,
Sure.
So, so that to me, I think parents many times, it can't be just we go on Sunday and we're done kind of idea.
No, I
So
agree.
religious education has to be a part of it. Catholic schools are a part of it. Going to Bible school, summer Bible school, any opportunities. And I don't even know that always that those opportunities have to be like really, really super formal, but that they're there, that they're happening. I really do think the involvement at parish level is really important because I see already that kids who are engaged as servers become adults who are lectors and Eucharistic ministers and religious education teachers and, you name it. They find ways to say, I want to do this because this is I've kind of gone beyond this aspect, and I want to now move into something else, another
Sure.
ministry, another opportunity. And so I think that is just really, really super important. I mean, even you doing this podcast with me, that I think says something to your kids. That's saying like, I'm going above and beyond just, going to church on Sunday. Father Ron and I engage in this. We do this, and then of course you spend all that time editing, so you're a superstar.
All kinds of time editing.
So, but it makes a difference. So I think connecting them
Yeah.
to the parish life, connecting them to their lived faith, that all makes a difference.
Well, again, I've got a good commercial that will work for you and everything you just said. I was talking to the kids. This is the last one that I have on my list. I mean, that's in order, the last one. I have another one I wanted to hit yet. But I was talking to the kids about the survey that we started talking about in the thing that launched all of this conversation. I ran into a survey that said it's from February of this year that 15% of Catholic kids stay Catholic. I said
Yeah, it's
15%.
really super
It's
low. Yeah.
terrifyingly low. So I thought, as we're talking about evangelization, let's talk about starting at home, and evangelizing the kids. If that number is even remotely accurate, that's terrifying. So I'm telling the kids about that. Told them we're going to be doing this podcast. That's the topic. What do you guys think? What would be, that I could do that would perhaps keep you on the track to keeping the faith? And they paused for a split second, and then I was with two of them that serve, and both of them at the same time said altar serving, altar serving. And then Hannah went further, my youngest, said that by far that is the thing that makes her want to stay Catholic, is the whole altar serving thing. And I know she's not faking it, because they end up serving at like the Easter Vigil. So it's like 3 hours long. Plus there's get there
Yes.
ahead of time, get there an hour ahead of time. And it starts at 9 at night. And I can promise you, I was really devoted to my faith as I was a kid in my Protestant church, really devoted. If mom told me we're going to church on Saturday night, we're going to start at 9, we'll probably get home around 1, 12:30, 1 in the morning, I'd have been flipped out mad. I could not even wrap my brain around that concept. Hannah is like so pumped about the Easter Vigil weeks and weeks ahead of time. She's already talking about next year's Easter Vigil. So I know it's real. She really loves it. What does she love about it? Does she love being in front of people? I don't know. I don't know if she's got, less shiny motives, but they're not all, certainly she has a lot of good motives. She's learned a lot. They learn what's happening at Mass. They've picked up on what the meaning is behind the actions. We talked about that at the beginning, and that impacts them. They know something is happening when they stop to genuflect, as they move. And we've had long conversations about, how important it is to try to do your best. And they don't always. They're kids. And I do the same thing. I fail sometimes too. But we've talked about how important it is, because people see you. They're looking at you, and you can impact their worship experience in one way or another. You can have an impact. If you're really respectful and you're really focused on what's happening, that conveys an idea that something sacred is happening. And if you're, just kind of nonchalant about it, that conveys something else too. So I know that they love that. I know that really has helped, keep them engaged, keep them, like I said, excited, all of them excited to go to a 4-hour Easter Vigil or the midnight Mass on Christmas, all of these things. And I know there's room for more servers.
Oh, yes,
I
there
just
is.
mentioned
Yeah.
it. So it's not like this is an exclusive club, that there's only just so many spots.
Well, what I think is great is we're seeing more and more of our young people who are staying on, they're through high school. I mean, they may start when they're really super young, but they're staying on through middle school, high school, college, they love doing it. We have adults that love serving.
Yeah.
But what's kind of fun now, we do have a certain club, they get certain advantages that everyone else doesn't have. They get to be behind the scenes with Father Ron and Father David, and they get to be in the in club, so to speak. And we do. It's not all seriousness in the sacristy. Trust me, I'm sure you've heard that.
Oh yeah.
We goof off and we tell jokes and do stupid things and we have fun, and it's just how it is. We recognize that it's got to be fun too. So we have a good time, and sometimes I'm acting like a goofball back there. So yeah,
no, they love it, and there's room for more, right?
Yes, there is always room for more.
So yeah, it's kind of a club, but it's certainly not an exclusive club.
Not exclusive, but a club.
Anybody's welcome. All right, the last one that I had, and I think it probably gets us looking ahead to the next thing I want to talk about when it comes to evangelization, and we'll do that in the next episode. But evangelization comes from a place of love. And that's kind of a really vague statement. But what I'm talking about is a love for our kids, a love for others, a love for our faith, loving those things more than we love ourselves, our own comfort, our own, this is how my day is going to be, loving other people and the mission more than those things. And I think with evangelization, we sometimes confuse the word proselytization, where, that is converting somebody. The goal is to convert. Evangelization, when you look it up, it says sharing the good news. The conversion part of it is up to God. I'm not here to get a notch in my belt or wherever I'm making notches. And I'm here to just share the good news. And you do that out of an aspect of love. And if I'm sitting around the table with the idea of I'm making converts and I'm going to keep these kids locked in this faith, if that's the primary point, there isn't that aspect of love that's there, that's missing. And in that study that we mentioned, there where 15% of Catholic kids stay Catholic, the ones that have stayed Catholic, one of the things that all those families had in common is that the kids felt that the faith was a source of warmth in the home. It wasn't a my way or the highway kind of a thing. The parents loved their faith. They shared it openly. They lived it, all the things that we talked about earlier. And the kids mentioned that they felt comfortable talking about it. They felt comfortable, and I think this is the really big part here. They felt comfortable asking questions about the faith, raising doubts, and having discussions about those things. And I know from my own experience, when somebody presents a doubt, I am just trying to slam down all the doors. Let's make sure we closed off all the exit routes, because I'm going to verbally explain everything. And that's the wrong way, because I had doubts. I think all of us still, all today, have doubts until we're done with this life and all questions are answered. We're going to have doubts. So the fact that the kids are raising questions certainly does not mean warning signs and warning red flags. And it just means they're digging into the faith more deeply. They're asking the bigger questions. And if they don't
Exactly.
ask those big questions, how are they ever going to build a foundational faith? They can't just grow on my faith. It has to become theirs over time. And that takes asking those questions and tilling that soil. And it's not always pretty, but we got to create that space in the home where they can do that.
Well, the love thing to me, that's the ultimate part of it. We have to love our faith and love our tradition and love Jesus enough that it's not that weird to talk about it. It's just who we are. And if we love, we want others to love. So we're happy to help them to find love, So the questions or doubts or whatever terms you want to use are all part of it, I mean, we wouldn't want to just instantly fall in love with somebody without getting to know them and understanding them. That's the same thing, I think it's easy to love the church and her traditions if you really dig into it. Okay. It's not hard at all, because it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. It wouldn't have lasted over 2,000 years if it wasn't. Okay. So it's easy to share love. Okay. If this is just coming from a place of like, I'm going to keep you here because that's what I've got to do. That's not love. That's
right.
Love says, okay, I'm willing to let you like kind of fly away a little bit because I know you'll come back. It's the butterfly approach, So I just think that, it's not that, we're trying to make them fly away. We're trying to help them to see why they want to stay attached. And so, yeah, I think it starts there.
And it can be heartbreaking. It can be terrifying. Like you said, letting somebody make their own decisions. I mean, it's what's got to happen. It's the only way to go forward, but it is scary. I mean, these are people I love deeply. And what if they do whatever? Well, I can do what I can do. I am not going to keep them in the Catholic faith by putting the clamps around them and forcing. There's a certain point when they're a certain age where I don't think it's up to them to make the big decisions. I think that's what we were talking about earlier. You're 8. You're not deciding for yourself if you're going to church or not. You're 12. You're going to church. There's a point where now they're mini adults. If they're like Hansen people, they're all mini adults. We're not tall people. And they've got to just grow into that. And I've got to let them be adults. It's terrifying and scary. I think the biggest, all of that's important. And at the very end, it's surrendering. It's, the St. Monica and St. Augustine, she prayed and prayed and prayed. And that's what she was left to do. And prayer isn't a last resort. It should be something we're doing all the time. And God really will answer those prayers. Think about the paralytic that his friends carried him to Jesus. He didn't bring himself to Jesus. We don't know that he asked to be brought to Jesus, honestly. His friends saw that Jesus could help him. They dig a hole in the roof or whatever, lower him down, and Jesus sees their faith and heals the man. We can bring people to Jesus. We can turn our kids over. He loves them more than we'll ever love them. And he'll get them where he wants them. But man, what a journey for parents. Does it make you glad you're a priest?
Not easy. Yeah, there are days I am.
Yeah.
But there are days I wish I had children too.
Yeah,
so
they're pretty great.
It's both. It's a both and, But I do have children. I have your children in a way, and they're mine in a sense. And
Yeah.
and I even have to do my own letting go at times. It's hard. It's very hard.
Is. Well, anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up. If you have any comments, questions, thoughts, disagreements, we can tolerate those. We've got broad shoulders. At least, Father Ron, you've got broad shoulders. You can take the hit if you
Yes,
don't
I
like
can.
what they're saying. I'll just let you read those. But anyway, whatever you've got, we'd love to hear it. Send those to comments at iCatholic.show. For Intentionally Catholic, I'm Dan Hansen.
Father Ron Hutchinson, God bless.
Thanks for listening to Intentionally Catholic. If you like what you heard, please consider sharing our show with a friend. If you have comments, questions, or topics you'd like to hear discussed, please email those to comments@iCatholic.show. And be sure to tune in next time for another episode.